safari guide today as we head out into the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. A few quick reminders before we head out to that reserve. Please keep all hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, and please remain seated. If you have any little ones, they are more than welcome to sit on your lap. Just make sure they remain seated at all times as well. No picking them up, moving them from lap to lap, anything like that. We are heading into these animals' homes. We want to keep them happy and comfortable, so please, no calling out, clicking, kissing, whistling, anything like that to our animal friends. And please refrain from eating or drinking throughout the duration of our adventure. Above your heads, you're going to find an animal spotting guide. It'll help you identify many of the animal species you might see out there on the reserve today. While you might not see every single animal on that guide, we normally have some pretty good luck. I do recommend having your cameras or phones out and ready though, because we cannot stop for every single animal that we see out there today. If you have any loose articles, please hold on to them tightly. That's because we cannot stop for anything that might be dropped from the vehicle. If something does happen to drop, grab my attention, let me know. I will contact our warden. We'll try to get it back to you quickly. However, we cannot guarantee it'll arrive back to you in the same condition it once was. The first stop on our adventure leads us here to the Little Aturi Forest. The Little Aturi Forest is home to many animals that are pretty shy and reclusive. They rely heavily on natural colorations and markings in order to camouflage from predators. Over on the right-hand side of the truck, we have not one, but two okapi. Now, the okapi looks like it might be related to the zebra because of the striping on its hindquarters and front legs. However, it's not. It's the only living relative of the giraffe. They have a very similar skull to the giraffe, as well as a very similar long prehensile tongue. These animals will use that tongue, which can reach up to a foot in length, to grab leaves and other things from the trees. They are shy and actually normally solitary animals by nature, one of the reasons they weren't discovered by Westerners until almost 1901. Even nowadays, it can take researchers weeks or months on end in order to find one out in the wild. That's because they are excellent at camouflaging in their natural habitat of the Democratic Republic of Congo. Coming up on our left-hand side, there's going to be a pair of black and white birds. These are saddle-billed stork. Now, saddle-billed storks, they get their names from the yellow saddle-like shield that sits on their beak. There's me one over here by the water's edge, another one up on the hill. Now, saddle-billed stork, they have wingspans that can reach up to 9 feet, so almost as wide as the canopy above your heads right now. Towards the back left, you're going to notice almost like a rock back there. There is a black rhinoceros. Black rhinoceros will weigh up to 3,000 pounds when they're fully grown. It is becoming much more rare to see black rhinoceros in the wild. That's because there are less than 5,000 left in the entire world. They are poached for their horns, considered by many to hold a medicinal value if consumed. However, their horns are made out of keratin. Keratin is the same material your fingernails and hair are made out of, so it has no value to humans. As we continue along, we'll keep our eyes on the dense underbrush, looking for any animals that might be camouflaging in the area. Actually, I'm seeing a couple coming up on our left-hand side. These beautiful copper-colored animals we're going to see, they are known as bongo. Bongo are known as the ghosts of the forest, and that's because of how rarely they are seen. Both male and female bongo do have horns, you can see there, and their horns move backwards. This allows them to move incredibly quick through the dense underbrush without getting tangled. As we leave Little Aturi behind us, we're going to start to head towards the Safi River Basin. The Safi River Basin is one of my favorite areas of the entire reserve, and that's because it's home to many animals, but most notably the Nile crocodile and the Nile hippopotamus can be found out here. Now, during the daylight hours, Nile hippopotamus normally prefer to spend a majority of their time in the water, but it looks like we've got one on the shoreline on the right. Get a great view of them. They can weigh up to 5,500 pounds for males when they're fully grown. Now, the reason they prefer to spend their time in the water is it helps to keep them cool and protect them from the sun. And when they're in the water, they can hold their breath for up to 8 minutes at a time. They can do that even while they are sleeping because they do have a natural mechanism in their brain which brings them to the surface of the water every 8 minutes without ever waking them up. Looks like there's some more in the water on our left there as well, my friends. Group of hippopotamus is called a float of hippopotamus. Up on the shore there. Now the gray birds you see, those are pink-backed pelicans. There's also a baby hippo up here in a second. We'll get a good view of her here. pelicans, they get their names from the pink coloration their skin will turn during mating season. They have wingspans that can reach up to 9 feet as well, and they are colonial nesters. There's a great view of that baby hippo as well on the shore on the left.
Oh, so cute. I've never seen a baby hippo before. That's cute.
Now, there are 8 species of pelican, and pelicans are actually one of the oldest species of birds. They do have fossils dating back 40 million years ago. And we're going to go poly-poly as we round this corner. Poly-poly means very slowly, and it's because we are coming up on a bridge known as Croc Bridge. And it's for pretty good reason, as you see there on the left-hand side. That is a group or float of Nile crocodile. Nile crocodile reach average lengths of 16 feet and average weights of around 500 pounds. They can eat up to half their body weight in a single eating, however, they only eat about once a week. Sometimes going up to a month if the food becomes scarce. I have noticed some with their mouths open. Now that's actually how they regulate their body temperature. By opening their mouths, it does release excess body heat, pulling their bodies down, actually very similar to a dog panting. It's a process called thermoregulation. As we leave Sophie behind us, you're going to notice that the tree line begins to open up, and as an indicator, we will be arriving at the African savanna very soon. The African savanna is home to some of Africa's tallest, fastest, and heaviest animals, as well as some very interesting and unique plant life, like this tree on the right. That is the baobab tree. The baobab tree has a nickname of the upside down tree for pretty good reason. It does look like its roots are up in the air. It'll look like that for up to 9 months out of the year. That's because during that time period, it does go leafless in order to conserve water during the dry seasons out in Africa. Now, during those dry seasons, its trunk actually acts very similar to a sponge. Animals know this, so they come to the trunk of the baobab, digging their tusks or horns into it. It gets the water out, and that's where it receives its second nickname of the tree of life from. Vegetation is given way to this beautiful view of the African savanna, and it looks like the first animal of the day we'll see out here is going to be the wildebeest, this gray animal we're seeing on the right hand side. Wildebeest, also known as new, and that's because of the sound they make, which sounds like they're saying new, new. New is spelled G-N-U. Wildebeest live in the second most densely packed herds in the entire animal kingdom, with humans having the first. They'll participate in annual migrations that spans anywhere from 500 to 1,000 miles annually. During that time period, they'll travel anywhere up to 1.5 million individuals in that herd in search of food and water. Also on the right-hand side of the vehicle, you're going to notice some animals with some very large horns. Those are Ankole cattle. Ankole cattle are also known as Watusi cattle for the people who first domesticated them. Now the horns on their heads reach average lengths of around 3 to 4 feet. They do have a honeycomb structure on the inside of those horns. What's going to happen is the blood flows up through the horns, cools down, comes back into the body, cools the rest of their body. It's almost like they're carrying around their own built-in AC unit. Now where these animals go, other animals follow pretty closely behind them. Keep our eyes out for any of them. Actually, they're over here on the left-hand side. Let's get around this rock face here and get a good view of them. Those are African painted dogs on the left. African painted dogs, they get their names because each one has its own unique coat pattern, giving the resemblance of being painted. You can see them down there on the left. Now, they might look pretty cute and pretty fluffy, but these animals are one of the most successful predators in all of Africa. They have a roughly 80% success rate. It's because they do work as a pack in order to chase their prey until the point that it does drop from exhaustion. They're also one of the oldest living canine species. They have fossils dating back 200,000 years ago. Let's see if she wants to cross the road here. They've got some fresh hay, so she's heading over there to get some food. Get a great view of those horns as she passes by, though.
Oh, that's a big orange cattle.
Now also out here on the savanna, you're going to notice a lot of these reddish-brown mounds around us. These reddish-brown mounds are termite mounds. They're made out of saliva, dung, and dirt. They bake in the hot sun and become as hard as concrete. Taller animals like the giraffe actually use them almost like scratching posts. And when they finally knock them over, smaller animals like the springbok can be found standing on them. By standing on them, it gives them great vantage points of any predators that might be in the area. Now the inside of the termite mound is actually very intricate with many different chambers. The way a mound is designed is to bring fresh, cool air in through the top and expel warm air out the bottom. One of those chambers inside of the termite mound is actually made for farming a fungus. So many people believe that termites go out and they eat the wood or other things, but they actually bring that back to their mound, farm that fungus, and the fungus that they cultivate is actually what the colony eats. Over on the right hand side, another view of those wildebeest there grazing. As the sun starts to set, many of these animals will begin to hunker down, try to find some good places to hide for the evening. A lot of times, many of the hoof-stock animals you see out here, such as wildebeest or giraffe and zebra, will normally give birth at night. Under the cover of darkness, it gives their offspring much more time to be able to stand and walk. It gives them a better chance at survival. Offspring, like zebra offspring, within the first few minutes of life, they're able to stand and run. Their legs are also almost as long as an adult's as soon as they're born, so it allows them to run incredibly quick. Also, when they're first born, they're able to imprint their mother's stripe pattern. This allows them to identify her from miles away. Coming up on our left, we have a tower or group of Maasai giraffe. Now we can tell they're Maasai giraffe by looking at their spots. Their spots are a little more rough and a little more patchy, almost like jigsaw puzzle pieces actually when you look at it. They're one of 9 subspecies of giraffe, actually the largest of the 9 subspecies. Above your heads is a picture of a reticulated giraffe. Their spots are a lot more smooth. Most of the giraffes there are eating. That's normally what you will see a giraffe do. They eat upwards of 20 hours out of the day. Seems like a long time to spend eating, but giraffes only sleep for 30 minutes. They don't sleep for the whole 30 minutes at once either. Instead, they take very short 2 to 3 minute power naps. They take those naps while standing, makes them less vulnerable to predators. The only animal that sleeps less than the giraffe is the sperm whale at 20 minutes. Now, knockdown trees like the ones we're seeing here are an indicator, and there might be elephants nearby. I'm actually seeing one moving around up ahead of us, so let's get up there and see. Elephants knock those trees down, and animals like birds or monkeys follow behind them in search of bugs or other debris that might have been loosened up. This is an African elephant. We can tell by looking at their ears. Notice how their ears almost resemble the shape of Africa. You can also see the way they're lightly flapping their ears. That's because they have very large blood vessels on the back side of them. When they flap their ears, it creates a cold air current over those blood vessels. It can actually drop their body temperature upwards of 15 degrees. The number 15 is very important for the elephant because that also is the age of maturity, and that's the age where the males, like the 2 you see here, go off on their own or form a very loose bachelor herd. Those bachelor herds are normally never permanent though, but the reason they leave the herd is because African elephant society is a matriarchal society. So it is led by a female and it consists solely of females or their very young male offspring. Reaching maturity at age 15 does give the African elephant the second longest childhood in the entire animal kingdom, with humans having the first. However, African elephants are actually pregnant for 22 months before they deliver their calves. So much longer than humans. Now, one of the biggest threats facing elephants, as well as many of the other animals we've seen so far today, is habitat loss. In their habitat, there is a mineral known as coltan. Coltan is mined for use in cell phones, laptops, cameras, batteries, and more. Coltan in your cell phone, though, can be recycled up to around 10 different times. So anytime you recycle your cell phone, it will protect wildlife and wild places. Wild places like the ones we're coming up to now, these are the red clay pits. The red clay pits are a favorite spot for animals to spend their time. As you can see, elephants, they dig their tusks into the clay and then consume it. The reason they eat it is because it does act like a multivitamin for them, providing them with vitamins and nutrients they'd be unable to receive in their everyday diet. Now, due to habitat loss, as we mentioned before, elephants have started to come in much closer contact with humans than ever before. They come into the area and either eat farmers' crops or accidentally trample them as they're passing through. And farmers, they wanted to prevent this, but in a natural way, so they did partner with conservation researchers. Researchers had recently discovered elephants actually communicate using something called infrasound. It's a very low rumbling, so low that human ears cannot pick it up. However, one of those sounds is actually reserved specifically for bees. Elephants don't really like the sound that bees make, so if they hear a bee, they'll make a noise, and the whole herd will head the other direction to get away from the beehives. So locals used this to their advantage. They began to hang beehives around their crops. By doing this, it did deter the elephants, thus protecting the elephants, protecting the crops. And the locals, they made a little extra income off any honey the bees might produce for them. It was a win-win-win situation. It is called the Elephants and Bees Project if you're interested in learning more. Seeing an elephant over here cooling off by the water, let's get a good view of them. They're behind this tree up on the left-hand side. They're using their trunk to take that water, throw it onto their back and undersides. Their trunk is an extension of their upper lip and their nose. It can hold up to 5 gallons of water in it at a time, which they use to their advantage. See them flapping their ears there as well. And since this one looks to be alone, it is most likely another male. Another animal out here by the water's edge today are these greater flamingo. Greater flamingo are the largest flamingo species, weighing up to 9 pounds when they're fully grown. They're also the lightest pink of all the flamingo species. Flamingos, they get their pink coloration from consuming things with beta carotene in it. Things such as brine shrimp or even red-green algae is rich in beta carotene and provides the pink coloration. For some flamingo species, though, it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 years for them to get that full pink color. And a group of flamingos that go to pass by there is called a flamboyance of flamingos. As we head deeper into the savannah, we are going to come up on mud wallows. Now, animals such as the elephant, as well as rhinoceros, love to come to the mud wallows because, as you can see before, they take mud, dirt, and water and throw it onto their undersides of their back. It acts as a natural sunscreen, a natural bug repellent, and a way to cool off. It is becoming much harder to see animals. As we mentioned before, rhinoceros face poaching threats for their horns made out of keratin. Elephants as well as hippopotamus face those poaching threats as well. Elephants and hippopotamus tusks are made out of ivory. They are poached for those ivory tusks. However, many conservation researchers have discovered that there are certain nut species that have the same consistency as ivory. So they've actually been able to use that instead of the ivory for things such as piano keys, thus protecting elephants and hippopotamus across the globe. Keep your eyes on the left-hand side. A lot of times during these waning daylight hours, you'll see cheetah moving out and about. Cheetah are normally active during the day, and that's because they have black tear marks underneath their eyes. Those black tear marks do reflect the sun, and allows them to see much better. It's actually very similar to a football player wearing eye black. Unlike other big cats, they are unable to retract their claws. These animals actually use their claws much like an athlete would use cleats. It's to grip the ground and reach speeds of 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And while they're maintaining those speeds, they do use their tail very similar to a boat rudder. It allows them to steer while they run. They're unable to roar like other big cats. They actually communicate using a series of chirps. Sounds very similar to birds communicating, but they are one of the only big cats that can purr. While we're talking about big cats, we've arrived at a Kobe Rock formation. Many big cat species use the Kobe Rocks as a great vantage point to see any prey in the area. But prey animals such as different bird and antelope species will use the Kobe's for vantage points in predators. During daylight hours, lions sleep anywhere from 16 to 20 hours out of the day, so it can be harder to spot them. Another reason it's becoming harder to spot lions is because of habitat loss and as well as poaching. Over the last 25 years, lion population has decreased 50%. But just like many of the other animals we have seen, there's many conservation efforts aimed to protect them. On the right-hand side, you're going to notice a little brown antelope there. That's a bontebok. Bontebok are pretty much only found on reserves such as this one. That's because at one point in time, there were less than 20 left in the entire world. They were poached near extinction for their coats, which is considered a luxury item due to its glossy purplish sheen. Thanks to conservation efforts, though, nowadays, their individual numbers are rising over 500 individuals. You're going to see a lot of these different burrows here. The burrows are mostly made by the warthog. Now, the warthog is the world's largest burrowing mammal. They're related to domesticated pigs, except they have razor-sharp tusks. Those tusks they use to defend themselves in their territories. They will go into the burrows, turn around, and face those tusks outwards. By doing that, it does deter predators as well as rivals from attempting to enter. On the right hand side, we're going to see the bontebok again, but then walking beside him, there's a pair of water buck. They are female water buck, and we can tell because they don't have any horns. Male water buck do have horns. They get their names because they're normally found near aquatic environments. They also produce an oily substance on their coat, which makes them waterproof. And on the ground there, that's a clutch of ostrich eggs. Ostriches, they are the world's largest bird, so it is pretty fair to say their eggs are incredibly large as well, weighing up to 3 pounds or somewhere around 2 dozen chicken eggs. The most dominant female lays her eggs in the most center of the clutch, the other females laying their eggs around hers. They are comfortable laying their eggs on the ground and leaving them because the shell of an ostrich egg is actually strong enough that the average full-size grown human male could stand directly on top of them and they would not shatter. We've arrived at the Magadi Glen, homes to Warden, the Warden's outpost, and their flock of Nigerian dwarf goats who did recently have some babies, if we can see them out here and about on the left-hand side. Nigerian dwarf goats are excellent milkers. They produce a very sweet and nutritious milk that locals can drink, turn into cheese, or sell at market. When they sell it at market, they rely less on local wildlife for their source of income. You're going to notice a pair of the baby goats underneath that yellow box there. That yellow box is a beehive, like the ones we talked about earlier for the Elephants and Bees project. Now there's many different conservation projects out there to aim to protect many of the different animal species we saw on the Elephants and Bees project, protect the pride for lions, cheetah conservation fund, and more. Maybe you have a favorite animal that we saw out there, or a favorite animal that can't be found on the savannah or somewhere else in the world. There's many different conservation funds out there to protect them. You can always look them up. You might really enjoy certain habitats with all the animals inside. Ones like the oceans, rainforest, or more. There's funds for those as well. Or if you're like me and you can't pick just one animal or one habitat, you can help support the Disney Conservation Fund, which aims to protect wildlife and wild places across the globe. Now, the Disney Conservation Fund, you can make a donation at any of the merchandise locations here in Animal Kingdom to that fund. No matter how big or how small the donation is, Disney will match it dollar for dollar, and all the money goes back to wildlife conservation. And as a thank you, when you donate, you get a button. I have one on right now. Mine is an elephant, but the animal on the button is always changing. If there's any wilderness explorers traveling aboard today, you are on the Simba 1. Again, it is the Simba 1. Simba like the lion. It actually means lion in Swahili. And if you'd like to participate in conservation in your own homes, your own backyards, you can do things such as recycling, turning off the water when you brush your teeth. Research plants and flowers local to your area. Plant them to invite in local pollinators like the bee. You can also build bat boxes. Bats are excellent pollinators as well, and they're excellent at pest management. They're going to get rid of things such as mosquitoes for us. What do you think?